And welcome to another meeting of Brant County Council of March the 22nd, 2022. Welcome to spring. Welcome to the freedoms that we're feeling with the opening up of the mask bylaws and some of the provincial directives that are changing. Please, if you need any clarification on what's going on right now and what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do, please contact either your MPP's office, because it comes directly from the province, and or our offices at the County of Brant, and we'll make sure that you're clear as to what's in place right now, and so that no one gets into any trouble. So everyone, welcome. First thing on our agenda is the attendance. We're going to take it out loud, please. Councillor Wheat.
Present.
Councillor McAlpine.
Present.
Councillor LaFerriere.
Here.
Councillor Howes.
Here.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Pierce. Oh, no, Councillor Pierce. Councillor Chambers.
Present.
Councillor Miller.
Yeah, present.
Councillor Coleman.
Here.
And Councillor Gatward.
Present.
Noting that Councillor Pierce isn't here yet, but he hasn't sent his regrets, so we'll be informed when he arrives. Second thing is,
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
I had a message from Councillor Pierce that said he was out of the country at the moment. So I'm not sure whether that means he's on vacation or he's on business.
Actually, you know what? He's in Mexico right now. And I do know that to be true. So maybe he just didn't give his regrets. So I don't think that we should hold our breath waiting for him to come on tonight. So thank you, Councillor Bell. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, noting that there's an addendum of 9.3 in our staff reports. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Councillor Wheat.
It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gatward. The agenda and the addendum be approved.
Thank you. Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Declaration of pecuniary interests. Councillor McAlpine.
Okay, if council will remember that the Administration Operations Committee meeting, I declared a conflict of interest on staff report RPT 2257, redevelopment of Beverly Street West, St. George. I have received clarification from the County of Brant Integrity Commissioner that I do not have a conflict of interest on this item, and I will be speaking to it tonight.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor McAlpine. Are there any other conflicts or? Nope, seeing none. Moving on to delegations, presentations, and I believe our first one is Kelly and Fred from the Library Board.
Yes.
Welcome, Fred. Welcome, Kelly. Who's going to speak first?
I think Fred
Kelly has some slides that she'll share with you. And as you can probably hear, my voice isn't so good tonight. So if I strangle out, Kelly will take over.
Perfect.
So yes, my portion of tonight is to share with council, through you, your worship, our most recent and new strategic plan that the library developed with our consultant over the past year, going back to the summer. Our strat plan had expired. It was the one that we had before. It had an emphasis on being an agile and responsive organization that could anticipate and respond to emerging trends and technological change. When we put it together, we didn't expect a pandemic, but the agile posture and being ready to respond to changes has certainly served us well. So on to the next strategic plan. And we probably, if I could describe it, it's a strategic plan that takes us back to basics. It consolidates our strengths. It positions us to move forward, particularly keeping in mind some of our projected plans to enhance our spaces and branches. So with that, next slide, Kelly. our consultant, TCI, really worked hard. They did the digging. They got to know us very well. They had a full slate of strategies to look at us as an organization. They visited all the branches. They engaged with the community, the staff, the stakeholders, and particularly from my point of view, the library board. Like I said earlier, this was a great project for our board to have in 2021. It really kept us engaged and enthused and looking forward as we came through this past year of the pandemic. Next slide, please. Here are our new revised vision and mission statements. They're not greatly changed. The first one, explore today, navigate tomorrow. I think previously said to discover tomorrow. We liked the word navigate. It kind of went with explore. And the whole information environment we live in 2022 is pretty complicated, and having the term navigate seemed like a very appropriate one. So we did some minor tweaks on those, and we try, of course, with the statements to have clarity. And at the same time, we choose words that give you the opportunity to plug in different concepts like explore or navigate. Those are the key words. To empower, those are cultivate. Those are the words that really make it go. Next slide, please, Kelly. These values, this is what we're all about. This is what underpins, I guess, our strategic plan. And when you look at these, Council, I would hope that you could see that with these, your library service has values that are really in alignment with what the County of Brant has in their plans. And those I don't are largely changed from our previous one, but certainly things like intellectual freedom, equitable access, client-centered, those are key foundations for a library service. Next slide, please. Now, we have strategic directions. We created this graphic to remind ourselves that one leads to the other, and one drives the other. They're not five strategic directions that are kind of in their own little silo. One drives the other, and that's the point of this particular graphic. But there you can see the titles of the five strategic directions that we identified in this strategic plan. And you know, you look at one like optimize the use of facilities, build organizational capacity. This is your library service to get the maximum benefit, leveraging our resources, our facilities to get the maximum impact and community engagement. We want to foster creativity and innovation within ourselves and within the community. And that can have economic connections as well. Each of the strategic directions in your package, I hope you've got this, we include here for this one and the other four, a description of what they are. And on the action side, what we did is we boiled it down to two basic or main ones that reflect the strategic direction. Now, Kelly has, and the staff have, another chart that really breaks each of these down into many discrete targets. But for the purpose, we put a couple onto each one. Would you like to go to the next one, Kelly? So again, promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are always trying to be aware and identifying any kind of barrier to equitable service within our community. Our community is changing, so staying ahead of that is a challenge that we'll have over these next few years. And the library board this past year did some work with the First Nations University, and we've heightened our awareness on our obligations around the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. So that'll be part of this for the next few years as well. Next slide, please. This is a strategic direction that has been a part of our last 2 or 3 strategic plans. It's one that's always included. It's reviewed, and we aspire to provide first-rate service experience, and will cultivate rich and rewarding relationships with our community. And that's just a pillar. I can't imagine a library strategic plan without something very much like this. And on the right, you can see that one of these is almost completed, that we have now. We're almost at the point, I believe, where the customer service office locations in our county library branches is almost ready to fly. So we're making progress there. Next one, please. Optimize the use of our facilities. You know, we've got plans to expand and improve our facilities within the system. And as we move forward and as we see how these branches work together in tandem, how to make the best use of each location. It's all 5 branches. It's not just the new main branch. It's a continuing, like that circle, it's a continuing process that goes round. And that's very important. Again, it's making good use of our resources to the maximum effect. And again, organizational capacity, much like the spaces. Kelly's doing a first-rate job in organizing the staff, assigning responsibilities, anticipating the future. And I believe when we have our spaces ready, our organizational setup and plan will be in perfect position to work with all of that. Next one. There we are. I just like to say that there's more information about our strategic plan available on the library board website, a more fully dressed outline of our strat plan. It's on the board page of the county library site. If you have any questions about this or would like a more expansive copy of our strat plan, I'm sure Kelly could get that to you very quickly. With that, I think I could just say that's the strat plan part of our presentation. Kelly?
Thanks, Fred. So it's now my turn to present the annual report for 2021 to you. So good evening. Thank you for having us, Mayor and Council. 2021. 2020 was the year everyone had to adapt to our new normal of the pandemic. I see 2021 as the year that we learned to thrive in it. This was our new normal. How do we make the best of it? And the library certainly tried to make our best year we could. We didn't let the pandemic hold us back. We introduced several new services, programs. We have a full list for you. I'd like to highlight a couple of ways that we've reached out to the community in new and innovative connections. So we created Call and Connect for seniors. After a 2020 packed full of online programs, we wanted to bring telephone access to seniors who perhaps couldn't join us online. We also created an online storytime newsletter. We've embraced YouTube to its fullest extent, and we're using it for some online programs as well. We introduced new collections like our seed library, gear and gadgets like provincial park passes, metal detectors, gardening tools. We introduced all sorts of things that encouraged patrons, residents of our community, to get outside, to escape their homes or the four walls they've been staring at through Zoom, right, all pandemic long. We also have disc golf sets now, for instance. So we're constantly looking to expand our services and connect with some need, identify a need that the community has, and figure out how to best serve it. We were able to take advantage of some of the quieter traffic times in our branches during 2021 to make some improvements to our facilities and our spaces. So every branch had something done to it, whether it was a paint job or some landscaping, a new sign in the Scotland Oakland branch, a long overdue new sign in the Scotland Oakland branch, for instance. We were very grateful to have county support through things like the Resiliency Fund and the Safe Restart Fund. That helped us buy things like bleach sanitizable furniture for the branches rather than our previous fabric furniture. We were able to upgrade all of our HVAC systems to include sanitization units within the air exchange of our buildings. So our buildings are safer now for staff and the public. And of course, we were thrilled to finally launch service of our novel branch, the book kiosk, our 24/7 library service kiosk in the Onondaga Fire Hall. So we think that 2021 went fairly well for us, but I thought I would give you a chance to hear what our patrons had to say. We have wonderful patrons. We are so grateful for the Brant residents who trust us and make use of the library. They depend on us and we depend on them. We are so grateful to get to serve the community. So I'll give you some numbers, give you a snapshot of what 2021 was like for the library. I've given you our in-person visits, our circulation numbers, our program attendance statistics, but let me give you some context to help understand what those mean. So 2021, right in the thick of the pandemic, we couldn't expect to have the same numbers that we did in the before times when people could move about unencumbered. But the numbers that we did accomplish, these statistics, represent 70 to 75% of the volume of traffic or circulation or program attendance that we had in 2019, that last full year that we had of the old normal before the pandemic. So I know I'm certainly proud of staff, and I hope you're proud of your community library that we were able to perform so strongly even throughout the pandemic and everything that it threw at us. We were thrilled to sign up over 1,000 new members throughout the year, and that brings our total membership in the library to over 22,000. Which I can tell you should be proud of. That's a fantastic statistic compared to our neighbors and other comparators within the province. So by the numbers, 2021 was, all things considered, a pretty good year for the library. So as Fred said, we have print copies of the strategic plan and the 2021 annual report available in our branches, and you can also find them online. So I will stop sharing my screen. And I know that Fred and I are both happy and open to taking questions. Your worship.
Okay. All right. Well, before I throw it open to the council, I want to just personally thank you for everything you've done. You've done an amazing job. It's my first year on the library board, and I didn't really know what to expect. Libraries aren't what libraries used to be, and I think you guys have done an amazing job. Kelly, you're very creative and you're very adaptive, and Fred, you're just the steady wheel there listening to Kelly's ideas, and we couldn't have asked for any better leadership. So thank you. Are there any questions or comments to Fred and to Kelly? Steve, you're first, then Councillor Gatward, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. More of a comment, if that's okay. And it's echoing a little bit of what you just said, but I wanted to chime in and say that Fred mentioned the word agility in his presentation, and Kelly, you and your team have been a tremendous example of agility and creativity. And I know people from our community who where the availability of the services from our library made a significant difference to their mental health and their family's wellness during a difficult time. So I just wanted to say thank you. And 1,060 new members, and on a base of 22,000 members for our municipality is great success. If this was a company, we'd all be investing. So I just again, well done, and thank you to your entire team.
Thank you, Councillor Housen. We are investing, by the way. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just have a comment as well. I'm pleased to see the new sign at the Oakland Scotland Library. I had the pleasure of raising funds with the Friends of the Library, and we put up the very first sign that was there on the front lawn, and it kept the same blue color, which I like, and it was wonderful to see a new sign. So thank you for that. And I've always enjoyed my trips to the library, as has been pointed out. There's always something new and exciting, whether it's those grab and take bags. I bring those for the neighbor kids and they love them. So I really appreciate all the innovative ideas through the pandemic. And I'm very pleased, Mr. Mayor, to move and second by Councillor Miller, that the County of Brant Public Library Annual Report and Strategic Plan Update be received as information. So thank you, Fred and Kelly.
Thank you, Councillor Gatwood. Are there any other comments before we vote to receive? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Fred. It's an exciting time to be on the library board with the build coming and all. So thank you for what you do. The second thing we're going to go to is 4.2, which is Brandon Carter. Is it Brandon Carter Duncan? Or is that the name of the firm? It's Brandon Carter.
Yeah, it's Brandon Carter, yes.
There you go. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is Brandon Carter, and I appear before you this evening as a delegate for Grand River Cabs, Inc. As many of you know, Grand River Cabs operates as a licensed taxi cab brokerage service provider within the county. Grand River Cabs has operated in the county since 2007, and in that time, it has completed over 1 million taxi cab rides. Grand River Cabs provides an essential service in the county. Citizens of the county rely on Grand River Cabs every day for their various transportation needs. This includes providing accessible taxi services throughout the county. As you all know, the taxi cab system within the county is regulated through the county's taxi cab bylaw. In particular, Schedule A of the taxi cab bylaw stipulates that taxis can charge a $6 base rate, with each additional kilometer costing $3 per kilometer on any metered ride. Everyone in the county has likely felt the effects of rising costs of nearly everything recently, in large part due to the ongoing pandemic. As many of you have heard, Statistic Canada recently reported in February that the inflation rate was at its highest rate it's been since August of 1991, up nearly 5.1%. The current economic climate has been extraordinarily difficult on the taxi cab industry. I'm sure you've all felt the effects of heading to a gas pump recently. Now imagine you have to head there multiple times per day. You've also all likely heard about the new and used car shortage. This has affected not only Grand River Cabs' access and ability to replace its current fleet, but it's also led to a stark increase in the cost of vehicle maintenance. Grand River Cabs has also seen significant increases in the cost of insurance, among many other things. As such, I appear before you today on behalf of Grand River Cabs and their request to seek a very modest increase in the incremental rate per kilometer it's able to charge on metered fares within the county. In particular, Grand River Cab asks that council pass a resolution this evening to amend the Schedule A rates in the taxi cab bylaw to $3.30 per kilometer traveled. For greater clarity, Grand River Cab proposes that the $6 base rate remain the same and that these changes take place effective immediately. I note that the increase will not only benefit Grand River Cab, but also those others operating taxi cabs in the county, who I am certain are also facing the impact of the current economic decline. I also note that the county is contemplating a vehicle for hire bylaw, which will eventually replace the taxi cab bylaw. The fact of the matter is the taxi cab bylaw is what is currently in force, and Grand River Cabs needs council to vote tonight to address the current and present regulatory framework by passing the resolution to amend the Schedule A rates. I sincerely appreciate council's time this evening and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Brandon. Are there any questions to Brandon from council? Councillor Bell, you're first, and Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Brandon. Brandon, thank you for your analysis there. Can you tell us what neighbouring municipalities are doing, and is this consistent with rises in other municipalities?
So we haven't conducted a survey of other municipalities specifically on terms of rate increases that may have occurred because of recent increases in expenses. It's difficult because some other of the neighboring counties have different bylaw approaches. Some of them have already adopted a vehicle for hire bylaw. So sitting today, I can't provide you that information. However, because it is a regulated industry in the county, we're asking for a pretty modest increase of 30 cents per kilometer, just to again address the most recent increases in expenses that Grand River Cabs is incurring.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Brandon. It's always helpful to have comparative data. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter, the 30-cent increase, does that all go to Grand River Cab to pay for the extra expenses, or some of that would go to the drivers, I assume, but I don't know. Just asking.
Brandon?
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you in terms of how my understanding is. Obviously, Grand River Cab would take that revenue. I believe that its drivers receive a pro rata share of that, but I can't say directly or specifically what the driver's remuneration would be. But yes, you're right, is that the 30-cent increase would be applied to fares. And then any driver that would be impacted by a fare going up would also see their remuneration changed.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is because I imagine the driver's costs in their own personal lives are going up, and anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Brandon? Seeing none, what does council want to do with this information? Can I get a motion? Councillor Miller?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll put it on the floor. If there's a seconder, there is, and you can go from there, but I'll move that the increase be allowed.
Thank you. Seeking a seconder, please. Councillor Bell. Seconder, any other comments or questions for the delegation? Seeing none, your motion, Councillor Miller, is to grant the increase?
Yeah, with the understanding, and I didn't ask Brandon, but I think we all know this, the increase is the max they charge. My understanding is they still tend to charge their regulars old rates. So.
Okay, thank you. And it has a seconder. Is there any other comments before we call the vote? Councillor Wheat?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm going to vote against it. And if it fails, then I'll make a subsequent motion that should be referred to staff to see how we're going to handle this throughout the county, not just with one firm.
Thank you, Councillor Wheat. Any other comments? Councillor Gatward? You're on mute, Councillor Gatward.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe it was stated that this is the rate in the current taxi bylaws and that any increase would also benefit other taxi companies within the county that operate. So it is not just for one company. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gatward. Is everyone clear on what we're voting on then? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Madam Clerk?
It appears to me that the motion was voted 5-4, so the motion would pass.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Brandon, for coming tonight. And someone from staff will be in touch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting, please. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Bell, that the minutes from the Brant County Council meeting of February 22nd, 2022 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. All those, is there any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Business arising from the minutes, please. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask a question in regard to item 12 of the minutes of meeting, which is in regard of a letter that you wrote to our MPPs and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing on the delays to the draft official plan. That letter went out 3 weeks ago. We received it in our Friday files, and I appreciate that staff did that for us. But after 3 weeks, I would have hoped that we would have had some feedback and would appreciate to hear whether either the Minister or any of the MPPs have responded and how they responded.
Okay, Pam, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Bailey. So the quick answer is that staff have not heard anything as a result of the letter. We have been in contact with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing staff out of the London office, as we regularly are, and they have shared with us that, to their knowledge, the comments are still with the Minister's office. We do know that they were shared with Minister Clark in late November, and staff have not been released those comments yet either.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can only express my disappointment that the Minister, having had our comments since late November, has chosen not to even respond to your letter to tell us why he's not letting them out. I would also like to hear whether our MPPs have had any commentary back. I would have thought it would be in their interest to pursue this on our behalf.
Have we heard anything, Pam, from the MPP's office?
Not as of lately, Mayor Bailey and Councillor Bell, nothing.
Yeah. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, I'm just incredibly frustrated on behalf of us as a council, on behalf of the staff who put so much effort into this, on behalf of our residents who contributed through their input through a period of years. It looks like we are being pushed away, and my suspicion is, and I can stand to be corrected, that somehow this is connected to the Housing Affordability Task Force report, which had recommendations which run counter to what we had proposed in our new official plan. And I think it might be now that we have to up the game and have you, Mr. Mayor, actually get into direct contact with the Minister and our MPP, or via the MPP to the Minister, and say, we need to know what's going on, because we're actually running out of time. They set a very tight deadline for us to complete the official plan. We followed our part of it, to the letter of the law, and now we're being held up by the ministry themselves, who determined that we could not have any shift in dates. So I don't know whether my colleagues on the council share my frustration, but I do think we need to step up the pressure on the ministry and on the MPP to respond.
Any other comments to Councillor Bell? Councillor Ferrier?
Just that the elephant in the room is there's a provincial election in 3 months. And, you know, like that becomes a bit of a forced deadline as well, because when either government will change or government will stay the same, but either way after an election, there's always a bit of a reset. And it can be a bit of a holding pattern for municipalities. You know, a month or 5 after an election, you know, we're not often getting the quickest turnaround on requests and things like that. So better to get this wrapped up before that than to try and get it wrapped up after, in my opinion. So, and it may be incumbent upon us as individuals to also contact our MPPs, plural, and and ministry folks and the rest too, because, you know, we're all elected folks and we should all be pushing the same way, in the same direction on this. So happy to help if that does help. But that's just a comment.
Thank you. Councillor Miller, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just going off what some of the comments Jennifer Ward made at the Ag Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, which Pam kind of reinforced tonight. The ministry, they are in receipt of the letter. They're well aware of where we stand on it. I think they do understand our frustration. But as Councillor Ferrier pointed out, there is a writ about to be dropped. So, and I agree with Councillor Bell. I think there might be some politics going on with that affordable task house thing. So, all I'm trying to say, Mr. Mayor, is I'm not sure if us writing another letter, putting pressure on MPP is going to change anything. I think the forces that are holding it up are a little bit bigger than the county. So I share the frustration, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's much we can do about it at this point. That's just my.
Councillor Ferrier.
I just a question to staff. Councillor Miller, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Miller brings up the idea that, you know, this is probably bigger than us, and I agree. But are other municipalities getting their OPs approved? But were they under similar timeline pressures? Are they being kind of told, well, nothing? Are they not being communicated with in the same way we are? And that's to Pam, I suppose.
Yeah, Pam.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Leferrier. I don't have too many details about that. I do know that the County of Brant has been one of the first, or if not the first municipality to have their draft in front of the OP or in front of the province and are waiting comments. So I think we're kind of at the top of that list, if you will, right now. Some time ago, we know our neighboring municipality, Haldeman County, received partial comments back, I believe, on their official plan, but that was dated pretty earlier, much earlier than ours, I should say.
Well, I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, it is just frustrating because this is, I think, the most important work as a council and as staff in development anyway that we'll be doing in 10 years. And we've heard through the grapevine positive things about it from the ministry, but not officially in the way that we need and not in a way that we're able to move forward. So, I mean, this should be a fait accompli. This should be a very easy 1-2 step that could be finished within the next 2-3 months, and that it's not, and that things could muck up this process. That's very disappointing if that's the case. And hopefully there's a positive to this story. But as it stands right now, it's a dire third act.
Councillor Bell, do you want to respond to that?
Not particularly a response, but I think we do owe our residents an update, and I think it's appropriate that the county issues a note to the residents of the county and saying where we are and what's holding us up, because they have done their bit, our staff have done their bit, and we're being held up by the provincial government and probably by politics within the provincial government. And I think we just need to be as explicit as that.
Any other comments? I understand Councillor Bell's frustration. When council directs me to do a letter, after the letter's done, I sign off of the letter, and then I don't know really when it goes actually out of the county, when someone pushes the button to send it. But I certainly know it was a long time ago now. So as they said yesterday at the meeting, I think the province is 7 months behind, almost 7 months behind, which is not just a couple of days. That's a long time when they put such strict guidelines on us to get our work done and to get our reporting done. So Councillor Bell, I understand your frustration, but I think the election is sort of holding things up. And I'm not sure what we can do as a council now when we know that our letter is already in front of the minister. There is a conference next month, and we will be meeting with the ministers, and I can see what we can do there. It's not too late to book a delegation to speak to the minister, and I'm prepared to do that. If this council wants me to have a meeting with the minister, I would rather enjoy that actually. And if that's the will of the council, I will do that. Councillor Bell?
To aid you in that, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we direct you to seek an appointment with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing at the forthcoming conferences, and that you raise this issue with them. Seeking a seconder.
We have a seconder in Councillor House.
Excuse me, Your Worship, if I could, it is my understanding that at the Good Roads Association, the period for requests for delegations has closed.
Well, we can try. We can try, noting that they are late by 7 months. I'm sure that their closing date might be a little flexible too, if we explain why we're wanting to meet with the minister. We can try, Alicia, anyway. So we have something on the floor, seconded by Councillor Howes. All those in favor of trying to get the meeting with the minister? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7.1, which is consent items. There are none to be approved. Consent items to be received. Councillor Miller, you have those?
I do, Mr. Mayor, and they're moved by myself, second by Councillor Wheat, that consent items 7.2.1 to 7.2.12 be received as information. And I'll say it while I'm moving it. I would like 7.2.3 removed for separate discussion.
7.2.3.
Health unit minutes.
Yeah. Any other anything else to be separated? Seeing none, we'll vote on everything but 7.2.3. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Miller, if you'd like to speak to 7.2.3, please.
Yeah, just I'll be brief, Mr. Mayor. I was reading the minutes, and it was a most unfortunate story there about Paulo Denola's son, Aaron. And he gave a presentation about his son and his mental illness and addiction, and the tragic outcome of that. And you can't help but hear about it and be moved. And I know with mental health and addiction, I think we all know this, too often we use the wrong approach to deal with these issues, whether it's incarceration or use of the police or whatnot. And also in our package tonight, we have OPP stats, which they always do a great job of putting them together. And if you look at the mental health calls, you look at them in 2018, they were 175. And then you go fast forward 3 years to 2021, and they jump, not quite double, but they went up to 275. So there's been we see a big increase. And I want to, I'm grateful, I guess, for Paul coming forward to help renew our hope maybe on that a little bit. Reading the minutes, it looks like the Ontario Health Team will be taking the lead on this, but I believe it's incumbent on all of us, whether we sit on social services, police services, the health unit, whatever. I think we all need to support the efforts to help the these kind of mental illnesses and addictions as best we can. So I don't know if you, Mr. Mayor, or Councillor Bell want to share anything about what they learned at that meeting, but like I say, just reading the minutes, it really touched me reading that, and I do think. I think we, based on the stats I think we got to do a lot more and kind of keep our eyes on this ball.
Thanks, Councillor Miller. Councillor Bell, do you want to respond to that, please?
Yeah, I will, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Councillor Miller brings up excellent points. I mean, it was sobering listening to Paolo tell his story. And there is a lot of learning to be had. And he felt completely isolated, not knowing where to turn, who to talk to. So I think one of the positives that came out of the meeting was that we connected Paolo to the people with learned experiences in the Ontario Health Team. So it's a group of people that have gone through these kind of experiences that can pass that learning and experience to the Ontario Health Team as it develops its strategy going forward. At the last Board of Health meeting, I think it became clear that we are the subject of mental health and particularly addictions needs to be better coordinated. And there's so, you know, each person in his own field is trying his hardest to make a difference. But that lack of coordination, I think, is shining through. And Paolo and his son's example tells a little bit of that story. So we had a presentation from the executive director of the Ontario Health Team for Brant last week at the Board of Health. And it is clear that he's got that message very clearly now, that that's a priority for our community, not specifically for the county, but given that we are part of Brant County in terms of Brant County Board of Health, it affects us directly as well. So it was an appropriate time to get that input as we try to formulate a raison d'etre for the Ontario Health Team and its priorities for the coming year.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Yeah, these last 2 years obviously have done a number on so many things. Mental health was in the forefront even before COVID, and now this has just become too much for a lot of people in a lot of ways. So speaking as someone who heard the presentation of people that felt alone and it's pretty tough. I mean, everyone at this table is pretty well connected and has names and has phone numbers, but can you imagine going through everything other people go through with no numbers and no people and no faces to connect with services? So it was very sobering to listen to these stories. So thank you for bringing it up, Councillor Miller and Councillor Bell, for speaking to it. If we could call a vote now to receive 7.2.3, please. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. We're going to go to 8.1 now. And Councillor Ferrier, you're going to take care of that for me?
Yes, Your Worship. 8.1, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gatward, that the Grant Committee report of February 24th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the grants the way they sit? We sort of did them in a blanketed way this time. All those in favor to receive? Opposed and carried. 8.2, Planning and Development Committee report. Councillor Bell, that's yours.
Yeah. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Howes that the Planning and Development Committee report of March 1st, 2022 be approved.
Any questions to Councillor Bell on his report? Seeing none, all those in favor to receive? Opposed? And carried, please. That's good. 8.3 is the Policy Development and Strategic Direction Committee report. Councillor McAlpine, you have that? You're muted, Councillor McAlpine.
I'm going to need a seconder for this because Councillor Pierce is not here right now.
Yeah,
But it's moved.
Seeking a seconder first, please, Councillor McAlpine. I have one in Councillor Coleman. If you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that the Policy Development Strategic Direction report of March the 8th, 2022 be approved.
Okay, noting the corrections. Everyone received the corrections. Are there any questions for Councillor McAlpine? Seeing none, all those in favor to receive his report? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Administration and Operations Committee report. Councillor Pierce is not here. Who are we going to get to? Who's going to who's going to report on that? I guess we'll just need someone.
That's me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor House.
Seeing no change in the agenda, I'll say moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that all items 1 to 12 of the Administration and Operations Committee report of March 15th, 2022 be approved.
Okay, Councillor McAlpine is going to speak to one of them. So which one do you want? Which one do you want pulled, Councillor McAlpine?
Item 12.
Item 12. Okay, we'll vote on everything. We'll vote on everything but item 12, please. Are there any questions to anything but 12? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Gatward, did you have a question on that, or were you just voting? You're on mute. I'm assuming you were just voting.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I did have a question. There was a question at the Admin and Operations Committee meeting about which roads were included in the gravel to hardtop road conversion. Did we ever get that information?
Okay, I understand that we called the vote, but Councillor Gatward's hand had a little bit of a lull in it. Is there anyone from staff that can speak? Mr. Walton's here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gatward, we can provide that information through a Friday file.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was Councillor Miller that asked the question. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gatward. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. You're not Mr. Bradley at all. You're Rob. Anyway, Councillor McAlpine, you want to speak to number 12, please. You have the floor.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to make the following motion. So whereas council authorized the purchase of property known as 2 Beverly Street West in St. George in July 2021 for a purchase price of $730,000, and the County of Brant formally acquired the property in October 2021. And whereas council directed staff in December 2021 to undertake a public engagement process, throughout the engagement process and circulation to the Brant County Committee to assess any public concerns with intent to remove the existing building and expand the existing municipal parking lots located south of the property. And whereas an additional option was presented, which proposed to retain and restore the original portion of the existing building, which was constructed as a super test gas station in the mid-1930s. Therefore, the council approved option 2 to retain the original building, original super test station, eastern portion, and to remove the garage addition, western portion, and expand the existing parking lot. The staff be directed to hire an architectural firm to coordinate the appropriate restoration, and staff be directed to engage the St. George Garden Club to determine appropriate future uses and report back to council. So if I could seek a seconder for that.
Councillor McAlpine is looking for a seconder. Councillor Miller has.
I'll second it to get on the floor, Mr. Mayor, because I would like to hear Councillor McAlpine speak to it, which he didn't last evening. So
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor McAlpine. Oh, Councillor Chambers.
Just you might want to sort out the procedural nature of what's going on, because now you have 2 motions before us. So I don't know how you want to handle that, but I do agree that Councillor McAlpine did get shut out at the committee meeting, and he should have the opportunity to speak to the issue. But you now have 2 motions that are competing and contradictory on the floor. So
that's right. I'm gonna ask staff what we should do from here. Alicia.
So it was my understanding that Councillor House, when item 12 was separated out, that Councillor House then moved 1 to 11 to be received as information. Therefore, meaning that item number 12 currently has no motion on the floor other than Councillor McAlpine's.
Okay, thank you. And we voted on everything but Councillor McAlpine's. Is that right?
That would be correct, other than item 12.
Thank you. So item 12 is on the floor, seconded by Councillor Miller. And Councillor McAlpine, if you'd like to speak to it, please.
Okay, so I have a short slideshow, and if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I'd like to share my screen and go through that.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Well, can everybody see this now?
Yep, I can.
Okay, okay. So in regards, so I just wanted to say that there's merit in further investigation of the restoration and reuse of the reconditioned super test gas station by the St. George Garden Club by the staff and brought back to council for further consideration. And I think though it's a considerable investment, it has great asset for the community in the future. So I just started go back to the Engage Brant and the 60 people that engaged in that. And I just want to say that it's my understanding is what Engage Brant is a tool to help understand what the community interests are, but there are limits because we don't know all the background and why they're making those comments. So I don't think that we can necessarily say that 16 people have said they wanted more parking are comparing it to what would necessarily have been aware of if the Garden Club proposal had come forward. So I'm separating those out. So if you do that, then you have 14 people that specifically said they wanted to demolish the building. And then you had 16 people that said they wanted to renovate the building on Engage Brant. And then the other one that came up was we had 80 people that signed a petition to demolish and 84 people that retained the building. So those are close, but slightly in favor of retaining the building. But in addition to that, it's come forward the Business Association that was strongly in favor of the Garden Club proposal and its tourism merits and its ability as attraction for the community. The Garden Club proposal came forward, which I think deserves strong merit. And the Heritage Committee recommendation that possible designation in the future, I think needs considerable consideration. So what I've put here is just a photo satellite of the downtown St. George, just to put kind of things into perspective for us. So right here is the Super Test historic gas station and the possibility of building sort of a town square here in the community. And it's right on the main intersection. So I think it would create a great visibility for the Garden Club, for the village to come. And so what you also are looking at is washrooms in the Super Test gas station. So that Super Test washrooms would service the here over the memorial, not cemetery, but remembrance for the services of the community. The Snowball Park over here, and all the Main Street down this side as well. It also, if it had some park benches and stuff in here, then you have Maggie's food truck, you have Drakowski's, you have over here the Dragon with their ice cream support, so they can all congregate over here, as well as we have a lot of bicyclers that come through the village that can utilize this space more effectively. So it also provides a space in the front here where we could have vendors for a farmer's market, crafters market. We could have the Garden Club flowers downtown as well. So the Garden Club also supports flowers over here at the Senate half. They have them all the way down the street, down at the post office, across at the parking lot. And additionally, they would like to be able to have flowers over here in Snowball Park and put in some butterfly gardens and things like that. So when we're considering this, they have their tools and everything, they would be able to store them here so they can utilize this, not have to drag them all over the countryside. So I'm going to try and go to the next slide here. So I just wanted to kind of point this out here. This is the first proposal from the county. And so it's the parking lot here, and we come down and we have 12 spaces across here. We can drive around the end, and that would create another 12 spaces. So it creates 24 spaces in this particular drawing. So on the second drawing here, we also have entrance over here, and then we have the sidewalks and side along this front here. And it just happens when you count all the spaces and then start recounting over here again, go across, we end up with 24 spaces. So in fact, both proposals end up with the same number of spaces. But we also have a lot of green space along here. And then we have the park benches up here. We have a couple picnic spaces as well. A nice little walk through over here coming up the possibly. So So I've done this third drawing proposal, and it's just a rough sketch, but I've done it roughly to scale, because what I've done is I've took the satellite picture from the previous ones and then reoriented the parking spots, and then drew these approximately to scale based on the spacing on the previous drawings. So by reorienting the parking, then all of a sudden it opens up the parking quite a considerably amount. Also adds the ability to have some extra parking, possibly up to as high as 32. And by concentrating then the greenery on the corner, we can move across the picnic tables, maybe to the outside edges, open up an area in here that would be able to use for your farmers market, for your crafters markets, buskers in the summertime. And we have biking parking here, because we do have a lot of bikes coming around. It also provides then again the washrooms for the downtown community and a central location that would be well usable. And then I put in a walkway through here, and that was suggested by quite a few different people. When the Apple Fest has their events on the main street, be very much more accessible to get through here, and then have your different vendors set up here, your food trucks, etc. So it just, I think, makes a little bit nicer layout for the parking lot and creates extra parking. So this is just a quick sketch of the historic building. And I approached Rob Leverty, the executive director of Ontario Historical Society. He strongly endorsed the proposal to save the super test because of its rarity and the ability for a tourist attraction, its uniqueness. And he was willing to do like stories in his magazine. And he also pointed out the designation would help with grants and raising funds. The Heritage Committee did an evaluation of the building, and it should be noted that it was done as is, not what it could be if restored, and was done sympathetically. It could be done much higher, indeed received much higher scores than the 50 points that would be needed to designate. In fact, reached 68.5, which is much higher. And some people have pointed out the age and was kind of questioning how that a building of this age would denote designation. And I would like to point out in the scoring, it received 4 out of 10 on age, but has merit was given if changes are reversible and synthetic. So if you're looking at things like the dormer here that has been raised up in recent years, that could be reversed. The same with on the sides here, things can be fixed. On the front here, it has steel cladding that was put on here so that a door on the back of the building could be put in place when they used it for an OPP station. So simply by removing the steel here, which is simply unscrewed, most likely all the opening and framing could be utilized and windows put back into place. The windows on the side, the top over here, the doors, these side windows here are all original. So all your openings are still there and available. These windows have been changed slightly, and might want to leave them that way so that we could put, say, benches underneath them for when people are visiting. It was noted when we were upstairs in this building, there was 2 small windows sort of sitting to the side. So I believe they actually fit in here. So we'd still have the original windows if we ever wanted to preserve them. Now, the other reason creating the uniqueness of this building is it's a first generation of the gas stations, because most of them were torn down. The newest development, as development came along, they're incredibly rare to have a gas station of this age. Its architectural merit, well designed to be aesthetically engaging as a gas station. And it also demonstrates local development along Highway 5 as the Route 66 of the north. So all the traffic between Toronto and Windsor came through the village on Highway 5. It fits the historical nature of the downtown and has the potential to be a tourist attraction to the community if it was restored. It was also the beginning of car culture. So you have to excuse me, I'm a little bit nervous. So this here is a picture of the super test as it appeared back in the 1940s. So it gives you kind of an idea of the Tudor revival style up here and what it looked like at the time. These beams are all still visible today. They've just been painted white, so they're not quite as noticeable as they once were. This is from another angle. So again, you can see all the Tudor revival styling in here, giving it a unique and an appealing nature. And so if we go forward today, so this is a possibility of what it could look like if it was restored to its fullest potential. And the utilization is the town square. So what we have here is a tourist attraction, which the history behind it would be a tourist attraction. It's architecturally pleasing to look at. It fits in beautifully with the historical buildings that are in the community. And it's a first generation gas station, so it's extremely appealing for automotive enthusiasts to come visit. Washrooms would make this a much more attractive for bikers that are going through the community on a regular basis. And it would be a sort of a starting base for a location for bike tours. So they could go up to Howell's Cidery along there to visit the other orchards. And as we go south in here, there's a new vineyard that's being opened up, Steel Red Breweries, and we already have a lot of bikers going through, so it'd be nice to be able to take advantage of them. The corner here, the town square for buskers, farmers markets, crafters markets, a place to join, friends for lunch, ice cream from some of the local vendors, environmental displays that the garden club will be bringing along with all the gardening that the garden club could potentially be putting on the corner here. Is also, the BEA is inspired by this and are planning a car show come Sunday, June 26th. I just want to point out the BA is strongly in favor. They like the town square concept, the tourist attraction potential, washrooms, bike racks, and the use of the garden club is a long time respected and giving extra added people coming down to the community. So the garden club, they've already given their presentation and I highly respect what they do. And I think it has strong merit, and the 100 years of work that they've done in the community doing the flower beds, I think gives them a lot of credibility and work in kind in the community that could be considered as a down payment towards the restoration of this building and their future use. So one of the questions was figuring out the management and modeling and financing of this building and how it could be done. So I had an opportunity to visit with Adrienne Carter and introduce them to the garden club. And she is the Destination Development and Finance Hamilton Halton Brant Regional Tourism Association. And she met with the group and said she thought that the idea checked off all the boxes for getting grants, especially for administration of the building. So that would be able to help out with the people doing the tours and the people, just the day-to-day management, helping to get sponsorships from local garden centers, applying for grants. And we should also consider, again, just going back to that work in kind that the garden club does for the community. The money raised from workshops and possible tours of the butterfly and pollinator gardens would also help raise some funds. As far as the building program, I think there's opportunities for the regional economic development programs in Ontario. There's grants available up to 150,000 for projects similar to this. And I reached out to Petro-Canada just to see if they would be interested in talking to us a bit further about this. And they did send back saying they would like to learn more about the project. So I think we have a win-win situation here for the community. The cost is considerable, but I think it's an investment that would be well worth looking into further. And that's the whole point of passing this motion. The architectural costs in the 400,000 that was brought forward is, and there's also contingency money in that. And there was money in that for cabinetry and millwork. So when you start taking that all into consideration, I think it merits further investigation by the community. Dan Brown, who did a site visit with the historical committee, and I also reached out to Chris Van Berkel, who's the listing agent and was familiar with the renovation costs if it was well managed. Said both said it could be around the $250,000 mark, which is far less than what has been proposed. However, if you added on to that the extra costs of millwork inside and the architectural costs and sort of money for the contingency funds, I think that it would be slightly less than 400,000, but perhaps not a great amount less. So, but I think there is room to sharpen our pencil on it. And I think this would be a great way to bring the community back together with the garden club and community farmers market and a beautiful restoring the building with public washrooms and easy parking to visit all the shops. I think we have a rather great opportunity here, and I'd like to see it move forward. So I'm open to any questions. And I'll,
Thank you, Councilor.
stop
Thank you,
sharing, I
Councilor.
guess.
Thank you, Councilor McAlpine. Are there any questions, Councilor McAlpine? Councilor LaFerriere first, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to speak to this as well, just because I didn't get the opportunity as well, because I had COVID and wasn't able to attend. I was quite sick. So I'd like to now, if that's okay. I like this idea, but I do have concerns. My problem is I'm almost not ready to vote either way, because I think there's merit to the proposal of the parking lot, and I think there's merit to this proposal, but I also don't want to vote on, and no offense meant to Councilor McAlpine, but I don't want to vote on napkin drawings either. And ideas about funding that may come through in the future, and calls to Petro-Canada yesterday and things like that. But I know if once we demolish, we can't do any of those things. But that said, I wanted to make a comment about the discussion in the community about this, because I think either way, no matter what happens, and maybe it gets deferred for a bit, or maybe it's voted on one way or the other, a lot of the things people want to see with this space can still happen either way. Right, we can have an area for bike repair and a bike stop station. We can have benches. No matter what, we're going to have more parking. We can also build a purpose-built building in the future, or a kiosk, or something of that nature, if we so choose, and if the community so chooses. Again, as a person who's had family in gas stations, I'm going to have to take Councillor McAlpine's word on the historic significance of a gas station. Though ironically, we've been talking about that, gas stations not necessarily being a positive, significant thing in our communities in other planning and development news. So I think there's potential on both sides, and maybe to me, I'd be most comfortable with a deferment for now. But if that's not the case, I don't really know how to vote on this one, because again, some of it seems like it's well wishes and some good ideas, and some of it seems practical. Either way, though, no matter how it goes, the community conversation about this, that, and the other, and the personal this and that has to end. This no matter what happens, there's stuff that we can do with this space that's going to be a net positive. We made a decision several months ago to buy this space, and that was a good decision either way. Now we're splitting hairs about what exactly to do with it, maybe, and I think the sort of tribalism of the day is coming up, where neighbors are fighting with one another about, what to do with the corner. But no matter what we do, there's lots of good potential here, and there's going to be a positive outcome. It's just which positive outcome. And the community is split, no matter what anybody says. It's split pretty down the middle. So I don't think we're making anybody happy either way, or everybody happy either way. But I don't know how people feel about a deferral, but some of these opportunities may make sense. But I think it's a positive story either way if we go about it and keep our positivity. That's all I have to say. Sorry about the ramble. I think I still have COVID brain.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Howes, and then Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to say thanks to Councillor McAlpine for his presentation, and it was informative and well received, and it's certainly clear to see your passion for this project. I have a question, and Mr. Mayor, it's a question for staff, not a question for Councillor McAlpine. Is that okay?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. And I'm not sure who to direct it to. We might have to, we'll start with Adam and see. I want to isolate the issue of public washrooms in downtown St. George. There seems to be a reasonable demand for that. My question specifically for staff is, are there other opportunities for delivering public washrooms in downtown St. George? Or if public washrooms in downtown St. George are a goal, is this the most logical place to have them. Because I don't know all the buildings that we own in around downtown St. George, so I'm just looking for a little education.
Adam?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So first off, I think obviously the potential of putting them at the Waterworks building was raised last week at the Administration Operations Committee. That's quite a viable option considering we own the building. It's within pretty close proximity, and you know, obviously there is through this engaged grant process, there was identified some desire for a public washroom. So I think that's something that we would consider. Subjective, perhaps, whether it should be on the main corner in a building there, or you know, in a little more indescriptive location like the Waterworks building. And also, obviously, I think it was raised too. There are several washrooms in downtown St. George, so we would have to determine the actual public need for a public washroom.
Councillor Helms, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, please. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for my ignorance. Where is the Waterworks building in relationship to that intersection, like nearby?
Through you, Mr. Chair. According to the overheads, it's about 100 meters to the northwest.
Okay, so 330 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McAlpine?
If I could share my screen, then that would clarify. I can bring up that satellite photo, and then we could confirm where it is, if you don't mind me doing that.
No, go ahead.
So here we are downtown corner, right?
No, we don't. Oh, there you go.
Okay. So here we have the main street, okay, possibly the super test station with public washrooms in it, okay. So then my understanding, you're talking way over here for public washrooms. Would Adam, you be able to confirm that?
No.
Because this is the Waterworks over here.
Adam?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, somewhere in that vicinity, yes, up against the building.
Yeah, so it's nowhere near where the washrooms would be utilized by the community. Say on Remembrance Day at the Cenotaph here, or for the main street, bikers are coming down here. This is where they're parking. If you have a little town center here where people are having their lunch at Maggie's or picking it up at Trukowski's, most logical spot would be around here.
Excuse me, Councillor McAlpine, we were talking about the distance to the washroom. You can't do your presentation again. Thank you.
But I'm just saying over here is quite a distance away from the downtown.
Where the downtown is today, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
So anyway, I just wanted to point that out so you were aware.
Thank
It
you.
puts it in perspective.
Councillor Wheat and then Councillor Bell, please.
Speaking about public washrooms and bikers, cyclists, they're not bikers, they're cyclists. And the cyclists know where there's a public washroom, it's at the arena. They're open year round. You can enter from the outside. They're not looking for washrooms downtown. They know where there is one. It's at the arena.
Thank you. Councillor Bell, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. John McAlpine, thank you for sharing your presentation. I think if we step back a little bit, we took a decision to buy this piece of land to serve a functional purpose. And whatever we do, we should ensure that we retain that functional purpose of creating more parking spaces downtown in St. George. But I think it's also worth reflecting on the fact that we do have a 50-50 split in opinion between those that want the building and those that don't. In support of those that want it, the BIA have come out in support. And as I sit on the BIA for Paris, I would like to think that if the BIA of Paris made a recommendation to or gave their support to something in Paris, we treat it very seriously. So I think it's really important that we don't dismiss their support in this. They can see the merits of it, and I can too. It's also clear now that we potentially have a heritage property here, there in St. George, which, you know, typically we don't dispose of without a lot of thought. But my real concern, and I mentioned it last time round, was if the gardening club was to take this on, what I missed last time round in their very eloquent presentation was any sense of a practical business plan. And I could not support this motion as it stands without seeing a clear business plan and their commitment to them operating this at their cost. And so I think Councillor Leferrier suggested we defer this. I think I would support a deferral for one cycle so that we could come back with a plan that either the gardening club can support or not, that confirms that we have met the original functional specification, and then we move on in a month's time. We put this to bed in a month's time. So if Councillor Ferrier wants to make that motion, I will second it.
We have a motion on the table now with the seconder. We need to vote on that. If it fails, you can bring another.
I think we can. No, I think we can make a motion to defer, and it trumps.
Yeah.
Councillor McAlpine?
Could we make that 2 months to give them a fair time to meet with staff and staff have enough time to work through? Because this is really coming fast to them and there's no need to defer further, but I would be all in favor of a deferral.
How does council feel about that? I don't support a deferral, but that's only one vote. Councillor Wheat?
I don't support a deferral. First of all, we've got a motion on the floor from the committee at number 12. And before you do anything else, if you want to make something else, you need to defeat number 12. And I'm going to support number 12. It's in the committee report. We can't keep putting this off.
Point of order.
Point of order. Point of order. Everybody's asking, the people who are asking me to make a deferral motion. I'm going to, at point of order, ask that the mayor ask the clerk about the process for this. I am fine to make a deferral. So Councillor McAlpine or Councillor Bell, but I'd like clarification because I think we're getting different reads from different members of council. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Well, it's going to have to be okay, I guess. Alicia?
Yes, Your Worship, it's my understanding through the procedural bylaw that the motion to defer would move to be the original motion on the floor prior to Councillor McAlpine's motion.
So
I would make a motion to defer, seeking a seconder.
Councillor Bell, how many cycles?
2, please.
Councillor Bell, 2 cycles?
I would prefer 1 cycle.
Let's split the difference then. One cycle it is. I'm sorry, JM. That's fine.
Okay,
I'm fine with making it for 1.
There's a seconder. We have a seconder. Is there any other comments before we call the vote to defer? Councillor Miller?
This, my understanding was we wanted to get the parking in place for this coming season. Yes, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a deferral on the table. Apparently that trumps everything else. It's been seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor of deferring it? Everyone opposed to deferring it?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I've had my hand up for about 3 minutes for deferral. My internet is really wonky and I apologize. I'm cutting in and out. I don't even know whether you can hear me now.
Okay, so what was your hand up for, Councillor Chambers? I can't see you.
Yeah, that's, I think, obvious because I did have my hand up. Mr. Mayor, this is procedurally gone off the rails. We have now about 3 or 4 motions before us. We don't even know what we're trying to defer. We would submit that when a report is presented, the recommendations in the report can be pulled and be voted on separately, but they cannot and never have been pulled to substitute a contradictory motion instead by a member of council. That is really unusual and never been done and shouldn't be done, in my opinion. I'm convinced that we should refer this whole matter back to the committee for a complete discussion where we can analyze and question accordingly. But we have a motion to the committee, we have a motion from Councillor, and then we're now going to defer the original recommendation. It's wrong at best. I would like a clarification on what the hell we're doing, because it's off the rails as I'm concerned, and it should be referred back to the committee for discussion to sort this whole thing out, because each proposal has merits, and because of internet connection, I apologize for not being able to bring this forward sooner. But I don't even know what we're voting at this point, Mr. Mayor.
Staff, Alicia, what are we supposed to do now? This is, as Councilor
Yes.
Chambers says, wonky at best.
So if I may, Your Worship, so the current motion on the floor with regards to item 12 would have been Councillor McAlpine's motion, as it was not moved as part of the original motion. Therefore, the motion to defer would attach to Councillor McAlpine's motion, which would be deferred at this point back to come back to council in 2 cycles.
I think it was 1 cycle, Alicia, but not that it makes that much difference. Councillor Bell, is that what you were going to say, just to clarify the 2 cycles? Yeah. Anyone else have anything to say? So it's Councillor Gatward.
I'm not sure you can see me, Mr. Mayor, but my hand is up.
Your hand is up to support the deferral?
A question to the clerk: what becomes the original recommendation that has been presented and moved and seconded? If we defer McAlpine's motion back, what do we do with the original motion recommendation on the report?
So then, through you, Your Worship, what would happen with the original motion would be that it was not moved and seconded, and therefore it
was, Madam Clerk, it was moved and seconded. It was moved and seconded, pulled for to be voted on separately.
That's right.
That's my point.
Perhaps then we could ask for a point of clarification from Councillor Howes. Through you, Mr. Mayor, when you moved the original motion, Councillor Howes, did you move item 12 or was it item 1 to 11?
Through the chair, just to be clear, I started out to move the entire group because there had not been any item pulled, but then Councillor McAlpine pulled item number 12. So I moved and there was a seconder for the approval of items 1 to 11.
You can't pull something that hasn't been moved.
Councillor Howes?
You can't pull something. Yeah, I'm at as much of a loss as everybody else procedurally on
Perhaps what I might suggest then, Your Worship, is that the motion on the floor with regards to Councillor McAlpine's, if that were voted on and defeated, and then perhaps we could move the original motion, which was included within the report, which could at that point, somebody could move a motion to defer and then defer that back, whether 1 cycle, 2 cycles, or back to Administration and Operations Committee for further discussion, and then it could come back through to council that way.
All right, Councillor Gatward.
Or Mr. Mayor, we could, since it's going to come back to committee, or that's what's being suggested, the number 12 on the report could be deferred, as has been suggested, and Councillor McAlpine's motion that he read, that we haven't seen before, could be withdrawn and put on the next agenda for the committee to consider for the next council meeting. That would deal with both the number 12 and Councillor McAlpine's motion, and we would deal with neither one tonight. Would that work, Madam Clerk?
Through you, your worship, I would suggest that either the entirety of item 12 be referred back to committee, or that, as I previously suggested, that Councillor McAlpine's motion be voted on, and then somebody, or Councillor Howes, move the original motion included in the report onto the floor, at which point somebody can recommend a deferral.
All right. So, okay, everyone's clear on what we're doing here, Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I seconded the motion from Councillor House, and I second the motion from 1 to 12. Then it goes to the mayor or the chair to be asked, does anybody want anything pulled? So all those motions are on the floor, and Councillor McAlpine wanted number 12 pulled. 12 was pulled, the rest were voted on, and then Councillor McAlpine made another motion, which we already had one motion on the floor. In my opinion, procedure would be is that if you don't like number 12 the way it's in from the committee, is you defeat that motion, and then a new motion is put on, or a deferral of that, or whatever. But we've got about 3 different motions on, and I think we're way, as Councillor Chambers used that word wonky, he used it more than once tonight, and I think we're way wonky on this whole thing right now.
Yeah, well,
Through you, Mr. Chair, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if Councillor Coleman seconded the motion believing that item number 12 was included within the original resolution, then the motion on the floor, he would be correct then. Councillor McAlpine's motion would be out of order, and the original motion would be on the floor, which would mean that it's that original motion included within the report, which would right now be referred back to committee or to staff for further information. If Councillor Coleman can confirm that that was his intent when he seconded the motion, then item 12 would have already been on the floor, which would put McAlpine's motion out of order.
Okay. Councillor Wheat, did you have your hand up?
That's exactly what I said 15 minutes ago. Number 12 was on the floor. Someone wanted it removed. Then they spoke to it. What you can do, they can make a motion to defer number 12 if you want, or vote on number 12 before a separate motion on number 12 is made. If you want to make a separate motion without a deferral, you have to defeat number 12 and then make a separate motion. But right now, number 12 is on the floor until somebody moves a deferral or defeats number 12 before you make another motion. You can make it a deferral if you want right now. I've been around here for 18 years. If you want to defer number 12, fine and dandy, somebody makes a motion, you vote on the deferral. But if it's not deferred, number 12 is still on the floor, and before a separate motion for number 12 is made, you would have to defeat number 12.
Councillor Ferrier.
Point of clarification through you to Alicia. If I wanted to defer or refer back to committee number 12, is that possible?
Yes.
Yes, you could include that within your motion to defer.
Okay. So if 12 is what's on the table, I would like to defer and refer it back to committee for the next committee meeting. Seeking a seconder.
Councillor Bell is still your seconder, I believe. Councillor Chambers.
I think
I
he
was
was
just second that motion to defer and we back to committee recommendation in the report.
We didn't hear you, Councillor Chambers. You're on mute and you sound like a robot.
It's my computer connection, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Ferrier and Councillor Bell's motion to refer it back to committee.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Madam Clerk?
The vote is 6-4. The motion carries.
Okay. Everyone's clear? Okay. We are now going to go to staff reports. 9.1, please. There you go. Hi, Donna.
Good afternoon or good evening. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
So,
yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a report to move forward with a recommendation to be approved to co-host the 55 plus 2023 Summer Games. As you know, or as the group knows, there have been many reports come forward during the COVID pandemic regarding cancellation and postponement of the last 2 cycles for the 55 plus Winter Games. We were given the opportunity to host the 55 plus Summer Games in 2023, which has 19 individual competitions and close to 1,400 athletes. So it is a much larger event. And we brought this report forward to seek approval from council.
Thank you, Donna. Probably nothing has changed from no, nothing's changed. We were going to go ahead with this before COVID. We had a bit of a grand opening at the Gretzky Center. We were all enthusiastic about it then. How does council feel about it now? Any comments? Councillor House?
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's great to see this come back to the exciting opportunity that it was pre-COVID. I just want to note that the local Legion and
you're frozen. You're gone, Councillor House.
I can probably finish this thought, Mr. Mayor.
Paris has reached out, offering to thanks, I'm freezing. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. The internet across the county must be going wonky tonight. I was just mentioning that the Legion has reached out, the Legion from Paris has reached out to offer their facilities to try to tie in with this opportunity, and that's just great to see. So I'm all for it. Do we need a motion or anything, or are we just showing our support?
I think we're just showing our support. Do you want a motion, Donna?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could have Russell Press connect with you on that.
Sure. Evening, Russell.
Good evening, Your Worship, and through you, Your Worship. Yes, we would seek approval from council on this to move forward with, and specifically the report speaks to committing to co-completing the letter of intent that would be sent to the ministry to notify them that yes, we are interested in co-hosting these.
Okay, great. Councillor Gatward?
Yes, there's a recommendation on the report 9.1, and that a member of council be appointed to the 2023 Ontario 55 Plus Summer Games Organizing Committee. And in the past, did we appoint Councillor Pierce?
I think so.
Is he still appointed, or do we have to start over on that?
Through you, Your Worship, we have received interest from Ms. Councillor Pierce to continue to sit on the committee moving forward with the 55 plus Summer Games.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Donna.
If no one has a motion, then Mr. Mayor, I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you.
Printed with Councillor Pierce. Yeah, seeking a seconder.
Seeking a seconder. Yeah. Councillor Bell, thank you. It's really hard to even conduct a meeting tonight with the internet being so terrible, but we have a seconder. All those in favor? And it's unanimous and it's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 9.2, Mr. Bradley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My report is before you. It's fairly straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would suggest if council supports the report, they could make the recommendation as outlined on the report at the top of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Michael? Seeking a motion, please. We have the motion. I need, yep, Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Laferriere. No other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Michael. 9.3, Kathy Ballantyne, please. The Newport River Access Tender Award.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report again is quite straightforward. It's just to award the contract for the construction of the river access point. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions to Kathy? Councillor Coleman?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move it to get it on the floor before we discuss it.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder, please.
Then I'll speak.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Just to get it on the floor. Doesn't cost you anything. Councillor Bell, thank you. It's on the floor and you'd like to speak to it, Councillor Coleman.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. I've had, when this came in this afternoon and I was able to get it pulled out and printed out, I've been a little bit concerned of the amount of the cost going into this project. The first thing that bothers me is that there was only one company bid on this, and then I don't know why it did not come to operations administration here a week ago, because when it was closed on March the 7th, then it would have still give us time to get that to committee, so it could have properly been discussed at committee. And so to me, this is an awful lot of money to make a park along there. I wish it could be staged in. I know things are costing more and more all the time, but I don't know how we're going to make it safe for people to cross the road, Newport Road. There's no crosswalks. You can put all the crosswalks you want down there or whatever, but you got to cross the road if you're going to use that park to park your vehicles to get to the river access. And that's the concern. And if you read most police reports that we get every month, Newport Road is usually mentioned more than once for speeding and a few other things along there and whatnot. So somebody's got to do an awful lot of good job of convincing me to vote for this to be in favor. So that's my take on it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Kathy, do you want to address Councillor Coleman's questions as to why it didn't go out to multiple tenders? And
Yes, I can address that, Your Worship. It was posted. There were several companies that did receive the bid package, and as noted, only one did reply. I do believe it might have been possibly the way the tender was set up, that the proponents had to do some calculations, and that might have been just a little bit too much work for them to do so. We have done other tenders this way and haven't had issues. In this case, we did have a submission that was did look initially quite high, and it took a couple of days for us to get back to the proponent, and there was in fact a correction made to one of the calculations, and that's why it did not go back to was not ready for the Administration and Operations Committee, so that we could get the proper information to council. In regards to the safety concerns, Councillor Coleman is correct. There are some issues in that area. There are several strategies that we would be employing to slow the traffic down, speed reduction for the area, proper markings, signage. We do have a drop-off zone, if you were to look at the drawing, that you can unload on the riverside, so that that does reduce the amount of time crossing the road. You don't have to carry your canoe across or your kayak. You can unload on the riverside and then just park and walk across with minimal amounts of things to carry.
Councillor Coleman, do you have a follow-up question on that? Are you okay? Yeah. Councillor Housen and Councillor Gatward, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. To Kathy, through you, to Kathy. Understanding and appreciating the concerns from Councillor Coleman, I'm wondering though, if we don't go ahead with this project, do we end up in a situation where people are accessing the river and parking without organized structure, which in itself can be more dangerous? I'm just curious about that.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor House, this area has been an unofficial river access point for many years, where people have parked at Cockshut Road and paddled up to this site and then walked back, or got a ride, or, as you stated, maybe pulled off to the side of the road. There is a little bit of an area there that several vehicles do that from time to time for fishing and paddling pursuits. So yes, you are correct that, you will have this continuing problem occur if nothing is built in this area.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kathy? I'm sorry, Councillor Gatward, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I heard that there was a 9.3 added to the agenda, it took me by surprise because I didn't have my addendum. So I'm at a disadvantage here, but I am learning through this conversation what 9.3 was about. Can the staff please give me a little more information? Councillor Coleman mentioned the cost and that there was only one bidder. I don't know what the cost is currently, because I did not have this email the last time I looked at my emails around 5 o'clock.
Kathy, do you want to speak to it, please?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, your worship. To Councillor Gatward, the complete project, including the cost of the acquisition of the land, which council had previously approved, is approximately $325,000 for the complete project, of which $110,000 has been donated between the Brant Waterways Foundation and the RTO3, which brings the cost down to about $225,000. What we're asking for tonight is to close a few capital projects in the amount of about $30,000 to put towards this project, as well as another $55,000 out of the Trail and River Access Reserve to pay for the cost of this contract of about $219,000 plus HST.
Thank you for that. And I do think something is needed along that stretch, because I have seen on the Cockshut Bridge cars lined up on both sides of Erie Ave, stretched all the way back. Well, the city county line is in the middle of the bridge. And the cars, one day I thought, what's going on? I was going through, and luckily everybody slowed down because they were parked on both sides of the road. Like, there must have been 50 cars parked, and there was kids and pets and people. And if there was a lot down below on Newport Road, it might help take some of that congestion off of the bridge and make it safer for everyone. So It is a lot of money, but I support it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments about the report? It's on the floor. It has a seconder. We'll call the vote. All those in favor of the report? Noting there's a few things that need to be addressed. Opposed? Noted. Thank you. Moving on to 10.1, correspondence for Autism Ontario. Councillor Gatward, you have that motion. Seeking a seconder, please.
Yes,
Councillor Miller is your seconder. Do you want to speak to it, or do you want to just read it out, Joan?
no, it's just that the County of Brant do proclaim World Autism Day on April 2nd.
You have a seconder? All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. We'll leave it up to you, Councillor Gatward, to find the flag for that day. I don't think I have that one in my little closet of flags, so between you and Mandy, we should find that one. 10.2, please. Correspondence from just to be received. Wally Vicente, Josie and Rick Mannon. Motion to receive. Councillor Gatward. Seconded by Councillor Wheat. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
on 10.2, I wondered who's going to respond to that letter to Mr. Vicente.
I can. I've spoken to him on the phone. I can call, I can respond to Wally.
Yeah, I know that Forest Road is in bad condition, and I believe staff know as well, because I sent an email about it a long time ago, but it is good that they're going to look at sight lines and all that information, because the traffic in that area is going to increase substantially. They've already started moving dirt in on the city side, or that new subdivision being proposed in there by, I think it's Live Communities. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for responding.
Councillor Miller?
The letter from Mannins, I just say really quickly, when I go, I'll scan the agenda first, and I seen that letter, I thought, oh, I wonder where there's an issue here. And then you read the letter, and it's a good news letter, so we don't get those too often. I think it runs about nine bad ones to one good one. So it was nice to get that, and I concur with their assessment. I think the roads crew did a great job this past winter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Looking down to 10.5, the request for the county to take over the cemetery at the church yard in Burford. I hope that we can support that. It's a beautiful little cemetery, that's for sure. Councillor Miller?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I will refer that to staff for a report on that, because I think they'll put some numbers to it and have some discussion with the members right now, and maybe we can get a report in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great. Do we need a motion for that?
That was a motion.
Okay, looking for a seconder. I think Councillor Gatward had her hand up for that. Anyone want to speak to that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And that, I guess we'll, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor. 10.4, did we deal with that? Because I thought of our Grand River and people wanting to live in a houseboat on the Grand River. I don't know if we're considering looking at 10.4 or not.
Well, Councillor Miller, this is something right up your alley.
Well, I wasn't aware of any waterways in the county that were suitable for boating. So if Councillor Gatward knows of an area, I would like her to share that with us.
Councillor Gatward, maybe we just get a motion to receive 10, 2, 3, and 4. We've already got a motion for 5. So if we could just get a motion for that. get it on the floor. Councillor House, seconded by, doesn't cost you anything, Councillor Laferriere. It's on the floor to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Resolutions, we have none. Other business. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of questions quickly. The first one is the master transportation pick is coming up on March 31st. And I'm wondering if I could please, or all council could please, have a copy of the slides in advance for the virtual pick so that we have a chance to look at them before the meeting. Is that possible?
I think so.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Walton, that's possible?
Through the mayor to council, I believe we're actually going to put the slides for the whole presentation for this on the internet ahead of the PIC. So,
yeah, thank you. Yeah, and the only thing I had to add is I'm looking for clarification in the structure of our community committees. I want maybe to ask staff for a report as to who should be chairing and co-chairing our community committees. I didn't know whether there was something that is written down in a bylaw. I'm not sure that councillors should be stepping up to the chair every chance they get, because some of the reports coming from community committees come right to council. So I just want clarification as to whether councillors that are appointed to community committees as an advisor should be running for the chair or the vice chair. I don't know that there's an answer to that, but maybe staff could find out and send a copy in our Friday files as to what's expected of county councillors when they're appointed to community committees. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just had a second question under other business quickly. And I've been asked about this, and now that spring is here, will the projects that weren't completed last year on LSF, Birch Road and Mount Pleasant Road be completed this spring?
Rob?
Through the mayor to Councillor Godward, yes, certainly there's work that needs to be done, and then we have to wait for the paving season to in May for that to happen. But the answer to that is yes. I don't have schedule for all of them, but much of that work has to wait for the paving season.
Yeah, the flooding at the windmill and the cemetery was, of course, it was an extraordinary event when the ground was frozen and we had all the rain, but it was quite significant. And are they going to put in more drainage pipes on Birch Road in the urban area before they do that paving?
Through the mayor to Councillor Godward, the storm sewer that was constructed up Mount Pleasant Road to Birch was not connected to the windmill. We had a utility interruption that didn't allow us to connect that up last fall. So that exacerbated that problem there. When that's connected up, there actually will be a storm sewer all the way up Birch to the end of that road, and that is going to be urbanized. So that problem will go away.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. There's probably no other items, considering none of us declared that there were any to begin with. So moving on, Councillor Gatward, if you'd take us in camera, please. You're on mute, Councillor Gatward. Councillor Wheat.
It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wheat, that the County Brant Council convene in camera to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality.
Okay, before we vote, Councillor Wheat, did you have something to say?
Well, yeah, I was just going to point out, I was looking for it in the minutes and couldn't find it. I should have brought it up then. But at a previous meeting, Councillor Miller pointed out about the death of junior hockey in the county of Brant, in Burford and St. George. Junior hockey is not dead in St. George. The Ravens are still playing. They're in the playoffs. Ice is coming out this Sunday, and the Ravens will have to find another arena to play in. They'll probably move the games to Brantford because they have 4 ice pads, but the junior Ravens are alive and well in St. George.
Thank you, Councillor Wheat. Thank you, Councillor Wheat. Okay, we are now all in camera. All those in favor? Send us into camera. Are we all back? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Councillor McAlpine. Motion to ratify.
He's on mute.
I think that might be myself, Mr. Mayor, and with Councillor McAlpine seconding. So,
Actually,
no.
Councillor McAlpine.
Yeah, so the ratification of the in-camera decision is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chambers that the in-camera / confidential report of March 15th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Bylaws number 14. Councillor Howes, you have the bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor LaFerriere that bylaws 14.1 to 14.15 be read a first time.
All those in favor? If you could do it for the second time, read them for the second time, please, Councillor Howes.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor LaFerriere that bylaws 14.1 to 14.15 be read a second time.
Thank you, Councillor Howes. Is there any questions to the bylaws? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? There's none. If you could do the third reading for me, please, Councillor Howes.
Sure. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor LaFerriere that bylaws 14.1 to 14.15 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
Everyone's clear? All those in favor of the third reading, the bylaws? Thank you. Which takes us to number 15, which is the time and date of the next meeting, which is April the 26th. And if all goes according to Hoyle and COVID, and we don't get any alarming reports from Councillor Bell, we will be meeting in person, but it is a hybrid meeting. And if you're not comfortable coming to council chambers on the 26th, you can be buzzed in electronically. Councillor LaFerriere.
I just wanted to say thank you to you, Mr. Mayor, and the Paris councillor specifically, Councillor Howes even more specifically for the well wishes when I was down with COVID, and my family was as well. It was not a fun March break in this house. And also Councillor Howes for taking on so much of the work during that week as well, and all the staff that reached out to well wish, etc. It also strengthens my resolve in the fact that we are going to have a hybrid, because if we were to have an in-person meeting today, just out of abundance of caution, I wouldn't want to sit next to Councillor Howes and Councillor Wheat for a couple hours, breathing all over them, having just tested negative today. So again, I just want to thank you all, and also just say that that we're not out of the woods. And I joked, missed it by that much. All the restrictions are ending, but everybody I know is getting COVID right now. Luckily, it's Omicron. Luckily, it's mild for everybody I've been in touch with, but I'm talking folks who didn't have a taste of it for 2.5 years or 2 years. So just to still be cautious, because it wasn't fun, and I'll save the details. But I want to say thank you.
No, well, thank you for that. And I'm glad you're feeling well. You look well. Councillor Wheat, you look well too for everything you've been through. You've got your energy back and you can see it. And I'm glad you're feeling better. I just went through a process through another committee dealing with a councillor in the city, Brantford, and he has things going on too. And I've watched him, and we had a meeting with him late last week, and he was in person after being zoomed in. So watching the process of people as they get well, it's very encouraging that they are getting well. And as you said, we are not out of the woods by any means. I just hope that we get a chance to enjoy the gradual opening of the provincial restrictives as they sit today, knowing that we could go back at any time. And so just take care, do what you feel comfortable with doing, and try to be kind and be patient and non-judgmental. So with that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Good night, all.